So this is session 1 of 4 for Changeling the Lost with a Powered by the Apocalypse hack that I wrote, and we don't know exactly how well it's going to work. We're going to find out. It's mostly based on Urban Shadows. It steals a little bit from Masks and some other things. And in the show notes, I'll have a link to those playtest materials. This is sort of a pseudo playtest, and I'll come back to that. We've got sheets. People are going to be working from Google Sheets that I've put together for the different playbooks. This is Changing the Lost, which is quote unquote a storytelling game of beautiful madness, is what they call it in White Wolf / Onyx Path lingo. It's a game about people who've been dragged out to a supernatural place, into the fairy realm, and have come back transformed, and the difficulties they face and the changes that they have undergone in the course of that. So the way I usually run is, especially for these PbtA games, is it's going to be very open. I'm going to try and build on the questions that the characters have answered during the character creation process. We'll do scenes building. I'll throw incidents in as is necessary. This is a little bit different than Urban Shadows. It's closer to Changeling the Lost in that the unit is the motley. Rather than individual characters running around, that'll still be happening. There's a general accepted focus that the group is part of a team, a motley, and we'll talk about how that came to be. Tone, generally, I mean, it's a game with some horror elements. Dark, it is not grimdark in my view of it. It's not particularly gory. It has a mix of personal character things and political viewpoints and those actions, supernatural things happening. That's my general take on it. But we'll come and I'm going to talk to you guys in a second about anything you definitely want to see or definitely don't want to see in the course of that. This is part of the Gauntlet Hangouts, which means that we do use the X card for problematic materials. Everybody familiar with the X card? Okay, everybody's nodding, so I appreciate that. But for those of you watching at home, essentially, if we hit material that is problematic, that people are uncomfortable with, or if we go off tone, you can mark the X card this way or send a note through the chat. I'm going to say just a couple more things, and then I'm going to ask you guys for a little bit of input. This is a play test based on this very sketchy hack that I've done. It assumes a very specific kind of Changeling the Lost game, the kind that I've run, which didn't have a lot of resource management, which is actually mostly based on Fate and other kinds of things when I ran it. So this is verisimilitude, sort of trying to be Changeling. It's not exactly that. I abstract a lot of things, glamour, contracts, clarity, and we'll talk about that and how that functions when we get to there. Is there anything that's you definitely don't want to see or definitely do want to see in the game? I'll just open that up just in case there's anything we want on or off the table, definitely.
I do not know that there is anything I don't want to see.
Okay, you can X card if we hit that. So we will play till the core of the hour. We take a break about midway through. If I haven't called a break and you need one, tell me. I have a horrible Hoosier accent, so if you can't understand what I'm saying or I'm talking too fast, please stop me. That goes for all of you, and say, what the hell did you just say, lol? Just please, I will have no problem if you have to stop me and ask me to repeat myself. So with that in mind, what I'd like to ask is, in terms of our freeholds location, our city that we're in, Does anyone have a strong feeling about what they would like? Would they like something, you know, in the warm South, in the Southwest, like Texas, that's bright and sunny? Would you like it in the sort of weird, rainy Pacific Northwest, like Seattle, the dark and rusting Midwest, like Detroit or Chicago, or very old, like New England, or even tonally what you might like? Any ideas, suggestions, things that you would like to see?
I was gonna say I usually play like World of Darkness games in Chicago, so
Mm-hmm.
I generally like that city. But then you said Seattle, and I really like the feel of Seattle actually,
Okay.
or
Anyone
Portland,
else have
something like that.
okay? Anyone else have strong feelings about that either way?
I don't have a strong feelings. I would say that Detroit sounds interesting. I mean, generally the Dust Belt and decay of post-industrial areas is cool for me.
That's true. That's true.
That's really interesting actually. That could fit in with some of my character ideas.
Uh, Stephen, Sherry, what do you think?
I always like a thing set in Detroit, I will say. That is, it is a rich area for gameplay.
Are you okay with that, Stephen? I know I've run Detroit for you before, so
Yeah. I was going to say, but yeah, no, that's fine.
okay. So we'll set it in Detroit. And we've mentioned decay, urban decay. Detroit is a city that has a lot of interesting industrial suburbs, some very wealthy, some not, has a downtown that's problematic in places. It's got great swaths of old residential areas that have been abandoned. If you look online, you can find videos of people driving along great blocks of the city where just all of the houses have just been left to rot. It's a very, very interesting city. Okay, so we've got that in mind. We'll come back and we'll talk after character creation a little bit more about the freehold, because I'm sure that we're going to figure out some things during the course of that. So let me establish with everybody what playbook you're working with. Sherry, I definitely know that you're doing Ogre, right?
Absolutely. In fact, I've already started putting things in the sheet because I'm
Okay,
a horrible
great.
human being.
Anyone else have? I'm trying to recall the preferences that were stated on the thread. Patrick, you said
I'm going with an elemental.
okay.
And I also have started filling things out.
Okay. And Meichi?
The Forest.
Okay, Fairest. Stephen, you can duplicate one of those, or if you want to take one of the non-taken, that's also cool.
I was thinking a beast.
Okay. All right. Then I'm going to hide the ogre sheet. Not the ogre sheet, no. That would be a bad idea, Sherry. Sorry. Hide the darkling sheet and hide the wizen sheet to get those out of that.
Oh, goodbye, Darkling. I love you.
So I'm going to let you go ahead and work through the details. If you have any questions about the sheet as I've put it there, go ahead and ask those. I'm going to leave you guys to work on that for a bit, and then I'll come back with some questions.
So what is everyone's experience with the World of Darkness? I played Changeling a number of times, and I played Dark Ages Fae and The Dreaming and stuff like that, but I'm not terribly entrenched in the lore. So there's some things I don't know.
I've been playing World of Darkness in general was my first game I ever played back in college. It was Mage. But we've had my home group's had like a 6-year or so New World of Darkness campaign going. mixed vampire and changeling. So I've played a lot of Changeling.
I did too, but I think that in terms of lore, the Lost is, I think, the less dependent on the things set in lore, because so much depends on the city, on the specifics of your region. You can put everything in there and put out and leave everything you like out. So
Yeah, and I played a couple campaigns of Changeling, but it was LOL Changeling. So essentially, that meant a fast read of the World of Darkness and then make your own. So don't count on me for any lore or this is how a thing works, because who knows?
Good. I'm not going to stomp on any of you guys if I say, "Oh, this is the way it works." Of course.
Nope.
Okay.
No.
And I will say, my Changeling is probably the only of the New World of Darkness setting that I actually know. The only one I think I've looked at besides this is Promethean, which is such an odd game. But yeah, Changeling is the one that I know.
Well, and the nice thing about Changeling in particular is it's a game about a bunch of characters who are all mildly to not so mildly insane and hallucinating, so they can believe whatever they want to believe.
well, actually, in the new Changeling, it's another way around. They see the reality as it is. So,
Fairest.
okay.
So, what courts are everyone, and should we be in the same court?
You don't have to be in the same court. It's up to you how you want to do that. Sherry, I know you did Spring, right?
Exactly. I want Marosa to be struggling against her nature, and that at least.
Patrick, what did you decide?
I went with Winter.
Okay. Meichi, what are you thinking?
I went with Spring, so
Okay.
So
I'm
far,
aiming for. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm aiming for typical. Typical for the scheming and doing social politics. The rest.
Mm-hmm.
This is my view.
He's definitely the one for that.
So far, I'm also thinking Spring, but let me look through.
Okay.
Are kiths related to any moves, or are they just description?
They are just description in this.
Okay.
And I suspect everyone's already seen it, but if you scroll down the bottom of the first column, I've got some example NPC names and stuff. And at the bottom of the third column are the intro questions and the kith and looked stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to say I really like your changeling names.
Those are scoured from multiple campaigns, so
Nice.
I'll mention two as far as the moves go. I'll check in at the second session towards the end of that to see if anybody's like, if this move is not working for me, it's not what I wanted, and I'll let people shift those around if they find that one of them isn't to their liking.
We start with 3 moves total, right? The
Yeah.
basic one and okay.
Yeah.
And with the elemental starting move,
Mm-hmm.
did I understand correctly that you go ahead and pick 2 of the ones that are marked elemental effects for free after that?
Yes.
And then you pick normal moves?
Yep.
And the elemental effects, can you take them as normal moves later on with advances?
Yeah, I believe that one of the advances is to gain additional elemental moves. I think I've got that. Yeah. Under standard advances, you can take either a new seeming move or 2 new elemental effects.
Oh, cool. I'd missed that. Neat.
What I'm going to do is give you guys about 10 more minutes or so. And then I'm going to start with someone and we're going to work through the stuff. Probably start with Sherry, just because I put her on the spot. And if you don't have particular questions answered, we can figure those out as we go through the deck questions and things like that. So just give you a heads up. I will have everybody do a quick introduction before we do all of those things.
Okay, ready when you are.
Okay, well, I'm going to give everybody about 7 more minutes, and then
Okay.
I'll have general intros.
Awesome.
Lol.
Yeah.
I'd seen in one of the things somewhere related to the invoke contract move, where you'd said something about like a list of existing catches and stuff.
Oh, yeah, the link there actually leads to one of the wikis online where I found like the tables of catches and things like that. So I didn't copy that out. Let me see if I can find that link right now.
Yeah, or at least what document it was in. It'd be helpful to look at.
Absolutely. Copy. So I'm going to drop in the chat. This is a wiki that has all of the Changing the Lost contracts, and then the middle column are the catches for those, which are good examples.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. What I want to do is pause for a moment, and I want to go around to each person and have you give us the short pitch, the 1 or 2 minute description pitch. Give us the name, the general outline. I want to go around and do that, and then we're going to work. I'm going to work through with each person those details, get those out and discussed, and each of those will end with the deck questions, and we'll talk about how we do that at that point. So can you give us the short 1 or 2 minute pitch for Morosa Scorned?
Okay, Morosa Scorned. The Morosa Scorned, you know, is a person who is incredibly gregarious. She wants to be around people. She wants people to like her. She likes people. She's tall and statuesque, and a lot of people are terrified of her because she's a witch tooth. So essentially, she has a lot of magical power at her behest, and she's scary and intimidating and physically strong as well. But she seems to have no ill will for the most part. However, if you've ever seen her upset or angry or betrayed by someone, she's very capable of making them pay a price. But she tries to avoid that as much as possible. Very much your sense of Morosa is that she is trying to fight what she came out of the hedge as. So instead of going to Autumn, where they actually heavily tried to recruit her, or Autumn, and or Summer, where of course her anger, her prowess at fighting would have been valuable, she went with Spring. Where she's awkward, she's one of the 2 or 3 changelings who are there more because they aspire to the ideals of Spring rather than that they fit in or can forward those at all. So she's sort of in that little set of people who don't quite belong but desperately want to. Which is why her rival is Terrible Job, one of the other ones, who of course
tried to. We'll come back to that. I'm going to stop you there. There's so much good stuff.
I have so much stuff. Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay, because I am going to come back and we're going to get that, and I want to know those details. But so tell me about Gleaming Zack.
So Gleaming Zack, he's an elemental, 11 quick. He's lightning elemental. He just in his mortal mien looks very handsome, but sort of artificial looking. His mask, rather, sorry. And in his changeling mien, most of the time is just sort of a head to toe constant electrical storm, sort of glowing and obscuring anything underneath it, because he does not look so pretty underneath all of that. He was taken off to the rust chasms in his durance and had a rough time of things, but after being used for a battery for a long time, finally did manage to escape, but has had a lot of sort of mortal sentiment and understanding burned out of him. Doesn't really understand like ownership or the permanence of objects, or privacy really. But he still does understand personal loss, especially his own. And so he's sort of drawn to the I guess like outsiders and weirdos of the Winter Court. Sort of people that don't really fit with the mortal world and its emotions at all anymore.
Awesome. All right. Tell me about Camilla the Sweet.
Sorry. So Camilla was tricked into by her keeper with the promises, and she basically was through years made into her keeper's perfect copy, to be someone who is perfect, who is beautiful, who is there to be looked upon. but she had no control at all over anything during her time in Arcadia. So when she ran off, she went to the Spring Court, and she has a twofold obsession. One is to have a control over everything. She's a control freak, basically. And second one, she's really longing for what she lost, because the normal world and everything that surrounds her is just so ugly and imperfect, and it's not at all what it should be.
Nice. That's great. I like that very much. And last of our quick intros, Thicket Flickerjacket. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thicket is basically is always curious, is always looking around at things, and his mask appears to be a small child, but he spent a good deal of time a small child of about 12 or so. He spent a lot of time in the hedge, in Fae, basically, and his keeper had brought him to steal, and from other Fae, like at parties, guest parties, and things like that. He's a steep scrambler, and his association is with raccoons. So
nice. Awesome. Marosa, here's where I swing back to you, and we go through the big details here. So you mentioned your rival.
Yes.
Is Terrible Job. And what did Terrible Job do to you?
He told stories, tried to get one up on me before I even introduced myself to any of the court. He didn't
what kind of gossip?
Precisely. Essentially that I was a witch tooth, which I was trying to keep quiet, and he had a whole list of like some of the people who had run astray of me earlier. So he was the one that established for the Spring Court that, I wanted to have a more positive, face on things. So it's like she's going to get him back.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that sounds good.
So essentially, he has put her at a disadvantage.
What does your mask and your mien look like? What's the quick descriptor of that? And we have that great picture, but how would you describe that?
Okay, so one of the things is she's a tall, dark-skinned Hispanic woman. She has a very strong face. She always wears her hair back and sort of tied braided. This is her sort of face that the world can see. I always forget. That's the mask or the mien?
The mask.
Okay, the mask. So the mask that she wears, and she's kind of ridiculously tall. She's like 6'2" or 3. And she wears high-heeled shoes to go along with that because her mien is actually taller, almost 7 foot.
Oh, wow.
She has, almost. And she has essentially ram's horns that go back. She's sort of lovelier, but more inhuman looking in her mien. So one of the things is that she's a witch tooth, so she's very sort of magically touched. A lot of the stuff, like her horns, are engraved, and she has sort of little slight scars that are very much like significant. I'm trying to think of, they are significant symbols, even if they aren't complete. Like, essentially the magic circle is sort of partially scarred on one of her cheeks, and sort of that sort of thing.
Nice. How was she taken? How did that happen? Okay,
so when she was in high school, her and her chess team won a chance to go on a field trip. They were going to go essentially to this awesome park that was in Upper Michigan, and essentially a national park. And then they were going to go to do a competition. Now, they weren't that great of a chess team, but they had sort of put it together themselves in the last year, and they were trying to get better. So these were a group of kids that she was really close to, and this seemed like an amazing thing that had been arranged for them. But they actually got dumped off in the park, and it was on, and essentially it was like a hunt in the hedge. It turned into that. So, so her thing is that it was that she's pretty sure they were sacrificed for some reason, but she doesn't know. She doesn't know what happened to her other chess team people either. She's the only one that survived, at least the only one that's gotten out of the hedge.
How long ago was that in the real world?
15 years ago.
Okay. And where was your Durance?
My Durance was in, let's see, I gave it an awesome name. Let's see here, the Rustgraven Estates.
Okay.
Essentially, she was a witch warden of one of the estates.
Okay.
And at some point she, let's see, she had to trade away all of her understanding of chess.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what have you never beaten?
I have never beaten anyone in chess or checkers, though I try. The board itself eludes me.
So is it that you can't see it, or is it just that your mind won't let you make the right moves? Or
It's that it's like she doesn't know. I would say that if she could break it down, it would be that she couldn't see more than 2 moves ahead.
Okay.
And maybe she can, maybe not even that far.
What have you broken that you regret?
That's a good question. I think that when she initially got out, that the first, she hadn't seen, other changeling before, other than what was in her thing, and she ran into a beast changeling, and she broke his arm. When he like kind of approached her.
Okay.
So I don't
Do you have a
know
name
which
for
one.
that changeling?
I don't yet, but I'll go find one. How about Songbird
Okay.
Rex?
Okay.
I broke his wing. Now, mind you, he knew approaching an ogre right out of there was a possibility, but we were both surprised when it happened.
Awesome. Let me come to your debt questions.
Okay.
At least one of these has to be assigned to an NPC from your court, and another one from an NPC at any court, and at least one to one of your fellow PCs.
Okay.
So I'm gonna walk through those.
All right.
So someone broke an important promise to you, and they swore they would make it up to you.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Beck and Call
Okay.
of the Springport.
And what was that promise?
He promised he would be there to introduce me the first evening. And to all the people that mattered, and he wasn't there that evening.
Was he particularly whatever about it, or was he apologetic, or?
He was apologetic when he finally rolled in and figured out that he had broken a promise to a witch tooth. Yes.
Okay. And someone thinks they're protecting you, but it's really more like you're protecting them.
Yeah, I think it's
Oh,
Camilla. Camilla the Sweet. She always tries to, kind of roll in and talk for me when I'm making a fool of myself. But I also know that there are some of the other Ferris who are very beautiful that would really like to push her down a few notches. And made it clear that that would displease me. So we have a détente.
And you're cool with that, Meichi? Okay. Someone gives you access to your goods and supplies. You owe them 2 debts.
Yeah, that's spinning Jenny of the Autumn Court. She's a witch type too. And sometimes there's just things a girl needs, right? So when I figure out this place, I'll be able to pay her back. But right now.
And someone possesses a secret about your past life they've refused to share. They owe you a debt.
Let's see, who would know that? Let's look at that.
I could take that if you want.
Oh, that would be cool.
I have sort of an idea for like digging into secrets and things that people want hidden.
Ooh.
That sounds perfect. And since we're motley mates, that would be great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Do you have any idea what it might be?
Let's see, a secret about my past life. They've refused to share. You know the fate of some of my other chess team people.
Oh, that's interesting.
Awesome. All right.
I owe you a debt, but I don't know it, but I know it. Does that make any sense?
I think it's I owe you a debt there.
Yes, because he's keeping it secret.
Awesome.
All right. So that seems like a good overview of Marosa. Is there anything else you want to say before I move on?
Let's see here. No, that's awesome.
Okay.
I'm good.
Awesome. All right. Let's come to Gleaming Zach.
All right. So Zach, he's originally from the West Coast, in Oregon, Portland, but he was on a trip down to California. I'd say trip. He was more sort of running away from things. He'd been involved in like a tech startup, which had gone bust. His life had sort of fallen apart. The woman that he was engaged to sort of flipped on him seemingly overnight after he had lost this really lucrative job. She became like a stranger to him and left him. He sort of ran away from everything and was just looking to escape from things. He'd gone down to the beach and just written like really depressive poetry and pleas to the universe, and done dramatic things like put them in bottles and thrown them out to the sea. And he, a bit drunk, a bit exhausted, fell asleep on the beach. He woke up to a storm coming in from the ocean. And as he eventually got himself up to try and get out of the way, he was walking down away from the ocean, and lightning just came from the sky, hit him right where he was standing, and there was nothing left but the sort of burned lightning glass in the sand there.
Nice. And so a very stormy. I like the lightning. So where did you serve your Durans?
It's a place called the Rust Chasms. Okay. With particular keeper was the Luminosity, and it's this horrible metallic place. There's no real sunlight that gets to it, and everything is decaying. But when he got there, he was tasked with this certain area, this certain like sort of mind-bending, confusing metal construction that was rusting and falling apart, and his job was to keep it from doing that somehow. And there are a number of people around in charge of these different things, and people sort of went one of two paths. Of they either worked and tried to, sorry, hold on a sec.
Yep.
Dog. They either work to try and preserve these things where they would become sort of rusty and metallic like these fixtures, or like Zach, they would eventually just give up and destroy everything in front of them, where the luminosity, their sort of gleaming lord, would come through and pick those people up and carry them off for special service, which special service was being part of a battery generator system where you basically just stand there and channel lightning all day, which is
Ugh.
not particularly fun. He eventually, after years and years of this and being warped and broken and shaped by this energy, he eventually just realized that all of this power was around him and he could actually grab some of it. So he sucked in as much of the electricity, the lightning, the energy that he could, feeling it sort of burn out his body and everything inside. But when the light faded and he woke up again, he was, I guess, here in Detroit. Is there waterfront somewhere around?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it actually faces onto Canada,
Okay.
across the river there. So let me ask you a couple of questions before I follow on. In terms of the sort of the channeling of the lightning that you did, do you imagine it as, was it a continuously painful thing or more of an exhilarating thing, or did that change over time?
I think it was like a physically exhilarating thing, but it was something that was, it was numbing and wearing at his mind. It was something that was slowly eating away at the corners of his personality, of his memory. Things just kept getting more and more lost, but it wasn't actually physically painful until he decided to try and take the lightning for himself.
How many years have passed for you in the real world, or months or days?
We going with current time?
Yeah.
So it'd be about 20 years. It was late 90s.
Okay. Does he have any family in Detroit now, or is he completely isolated?
I think he's completely isolated. He hasn't really, he hasn't looked up any past relations or family yet.
Okay. What don't you understand about the world?
So, oh crap. So it comes down to this sort of, he was in a place in a world where everything was decaying, everything was impermanent. And so part of what burned out of him was this understanding of why people attach importance to objects, to ownership, to things that are theirs. He doesn't really understand that whole concept, and he doesn't really understand privacy in a similar way, why people attach importance to having information just for themselves.
I'm looking forward to see how that interacts with Thicket. That's a great detail there. When you close your eyes, what do you see in here?
It's the stormy sea. It's the waves on that beach in California. It's whenever he closes his eyes and just tunes out the world around, it's almost like he's about to wake up on that beach and none of this actually happened.
Ooh, oh, that is nice.
It's not ever actually true, but he likes to keep busy.
Who have you established as your rival?
That would be Sainted Coils.
Okay.
Restworm Beast of Spring, which is great.
And why is he your rival, the one that you want to get in the face of?
We had worked together. He's Coils, he's I'm imagining he's got some elemental electrical abilities himself. But we got in a bad situation in an alley, and he used his power to contain me there, basically, to wrap me up in a coil I couldn't get out of, and left me to deal with the problem while he just fucked off.
Okay. Awesome. Your debts. you make sure someone makes sure you get access to your favorite glamour, and you owe them 2 debts. What is your favorite glamour? What emotion is the feeling or sensation is the thing that you prefer?
What are the condition glamours again?
It can be anything that you imagine. The conditions are angry, afraid, guilty, hopeless, insecure.
There we go.
And one of the things is that glamour can be either the opposite of that, or it can be strong feelings of that.
Gotcha. I think it ties into that guilty thing. It's sort of a his favorite emotion is that feeling of release and catharsis. He destroys things, he burns things, especially things that he started to find important, started to attach meaning to, even though he doesn't really understand why. And so it's that feeling of giving up something that's important to you, so you must be doing something good, so it makes you feel better about yourself.
Okay. Who gives you access to that?
Oh, I like hammering beats there.
Okay. And we'll come back and talk about the exact nature of that a little bit later. But I like that. He's a good character there. You destroyed or banished something or someone important at someone's request. They owe you a debt. Who is that?
I don't know. Do one of y'all want to take that?
That could work with. Sorry.
It's I destroyed or banished something or someone important at the request of someone else.
That would work with me, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
And what do you imagine that was, or who was that? What are you thinking?
I would aim for some kind of rival at the spring court.
Oh wow. Okay. Nice.
I mean, I would definitely set it up in a way that you would feel that this is the right thing to do. I mean, maybe they were a loyalist, or at least seemed like one. I mean, acting like they did against me, they had to be loyalists, right? I'm sure my character is believing that.
So I think maybe someone like a bit wealthy, a bit important in the spring court, and Zach knows exactly the process to take down someone who bases their life around wealth.
Okay. So you kind of destroyed what they had. Shall I? Do we want to pick one of the NPCs from there, or do we want a fresh name? What do you think?
I would aim for a fresh name.
Okay. So we're going to say the fresh name is Tunde, Tunde, Kiss.
Okay.
That's who you essentially destroyed their resources at Camilla's behest.
Okay.
Would it work if this was like previous shaker and mover, social shaker and mover of the spring court, and now, given that maybe they have this mansion or club or whatever that was the center of their influence, and now they went down with that.
Nice.
And I'm aiming to take that place.
That works for me. Okay. Someone is watching out for a family member of yours, and we can substitute in friend or something, or some connection to your past life. there for Zach, and you owe them 2 debts. What do you think that is?
I think what that is, I don't know exactly who, but I think that was maybe like the first changeling that I met after coming back out. It was someone that I was still sort of out of my head, not really settling into what the reality was around me and just babbling. And I think it's someone who's watching over my ex-fiance.
Oh, okay. And who will that be?
I like the other one. I wouldn't mind that being another player as well.
Okay.
It might be interesting to have traded secrets with Marosa.
Yeah, I think that would make sense. And if it's something about your past fiance from how long ago? 20 years?
Yeah.
So, okay. Sure.
Awesome. And the last one is someone is trying to teach you and keeps suffering for it. You owe them 1 debt.
So this needs to be someone in Winter, an NPC. I don't have any Winter NPCs on my list there.
We've got them on the other sheet if you want to pop over the NPC tab.
Oh, nice. Ooh, pictures.
Yes.
Oh, Jesus, it's definitely Abyssinian Max. Look at that shit.
Okay.
That's amazing. It's a cat with a cigar.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's trying to teach me how to glide a little smoother through mortal world, a world filled with people that love their things. And I keep breaking everything he tries to show me as important or neat.
That's great. That is really awesome. All right. Thank you. I'm going to move on to Camilla the Sweet. So tell us about Camilla.
Okay, so Camilla was a girl from well-established middle-class family from the suburbs, and she wasn't particularly pretty. She wasn't particularly fit, or she didn't have a very good grades. Maybe early college. That would be the time she was taken. But her parents were very ambitious, so there was a lot of pressure. And she really failed at most things she tried to do. So she wrote those letters she was burning in her favorite place, maybe in a park or somewhere near their house. And that one day the letter appeared back there. She was basically writing all her frustrations there. And she was told to come to a specific place in the forest, maybe. And she went there, and that was basically the pathway to Arcadia. She met the perfect woman there, someone very beautiful, basically someone who she wanted to be. And she ended up as a mirror of her keeper. So she was supposed to do what her keeper was doing. She was supposed to take her place sometimes, and she always failed. Not always, but she was doing very good, but not quite how she should. So almost there, but not perfect. And this became more and more frustrating. And at one point, she managed to escape. I think thanks to the help of someone who she met there, but she forgot his name when she came back. So this is someone who was always able to tell if it's her keeper or her. He loved her, and he helped her escape. And she thinks they escaped together, but she doesn't remember him. The hedge torn his name and his face from her memories when she was running away.
Oh, that's harsh. Nice. And the name of the place you served your durance?
Golden Flowers Court.
Okay. And what do you miss about Arcadia? We talked about that a little, but
yeah. So I think that the perfection of it, because I kind of hate this drive to perfection that I have because it's like doubly entrenched in me from my parents and then from my keeper. But at the same time, I remember that Arcadia was fulfilling that. It was beautiful. Everyone was beautiful. Everything was perfect. And now it's all so. I mean, it's so also dreary, and there is some magic in this world, but this is nowhere near. So I'm trying my best to change this, but it's so hard.
nice. And your favorite glamour?
So I think desire. I want people to desire me, to want me.
And where do you imagine you go to get that? Where's a good source for you of that?
I think when I'm having a good day, it's some kind of social events when I can mingle with people, meet new people, or old one. And in worse days, I think it's nightclubs, things like that.
All right. And your ambition is?
So I want to have control. I want to be maybe either queen of the spring court, or at least most important person next to the one that is ruling the court. So
Okay.
I want to have control around myself. I don't want to be anyone's puppet anymore.
Not a puppet. Okay. What do you look like in your mask and your mane?
Yeah, in case of mask, it's immaculately. Oh my God, sorry, I'm misspelling that. I think a dressed woman in evening dress. So always perfect makeup, perfect clothing. Everything is very stylish, elegant. Maybe a bit too much, but it's still tasteful. And in case of my real look, man, I think it's more of the same. I mean, the dress is much more elaborate. There is a lot of impossible meshes, like a lot of details that couldn't really keep up in the normal world. Maybe like on a runway, like stuff you can see on the high fashion shows, but not really in day to day. Golden hair and piercing green eyes.
How old do you appear in your mask?
I think I'm like 25, something like that.
And how long has passed in the real world since you were taken?
Okay, so I think I was maybe let's go with the late high school after all, and in the real world, it was like one day.
Ooh.
And in the Arcadia, years has passed. So,
wow, one day. That's great. That's great and horrible.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Nice. Let's look at your debts. Well, actually, let's talk about your rival. Who is your rival?
Yeah, I've switched that to Beacon Call. Beacon, am I pronouncing that right?
Yep.
Okay. So I think he acted like he was seduced by me, and then picked someone else to go to the ball. It was specifically to make me to humiliate me. So he wants to destroy me. This is clear for me. And
Oh, okay.
it was a person I trusted him because I felt we are alike. So I was somewhat drawn to him by this, and then he just twisted that and turned against me.
Nice. That is spring, and the fairest. So, someone is intimate with a motley compatriot, but you doubt they have anyone's interests at heart. Who is that?
Okay, so I would say it could be Gloriana Twofold,
Okay.
and as with whom she is intimate, that's a question to the motley.
Okay.
Any takers?
Anybody? And that can be strong friends or lovers or anything like that.
I don't want to hog all the ties with Camilla, so I'll step out. That is my own.
We can pick different NPC if this one doesn't work for you. So I'm okay with that.
I could do that one. I like Summer. I have a high connection, sort of empathy with them.
Okay.
So I could see a really close friendship there, or at least I think it is.
Right. So you think she's using Zach for her own ends?
Yep, definitely.
Okay.
He's so naive sometimes and open-hearted.
That's why you were able to twist him to your own ends.
This is completely not how it went.
Okay.
Well, that's the other thing is that Gloriana can make herself look more like his past fiance. So, like, he doesn't realize that she kind of changes how she looks.
Oh, no.
I like that.
You scam someone out of something rare and priceless they cannot recover. You owe them 2 debts.
Ooh. Okay, let's see who is here too. So maybe that was Sarah No Tears.
Okay.
That will work. Oh, she's Winter. I wanted someone from. No, it is Spinning Genie. Spinning Genie will be.
Okay. One of the autumn thing. What did you scam her out of?
Okay, I think maybe some type of item. Maybe that was some kind of beautiful piece of jewelry, something like that.
Okay.
Something magical, something from the hedge.
A token, maybe a hedge spun necklace of some kind.
Yep.
Or some other piece of jewelry.
Yep, something like that. Yes, even the token that has some properties, and maybe it's. I'm wondering about recovering. So either I did it on someone else's behalf and it's lost, or is it something that binds with the owner and it cannot really be given back?
I like the idea of that. How about maybe it's something that she had made because she is a spinner and she hedge spun it, and then you scammed her out of it before she could bind it, and now it is permanently yours.
Or I have better idea. So
okay.
It was a dress. It's a dress I'm wearing, but I've convinced her she's doing it for someone else. And what I did, I gave her my my measurings, so it doesn't really fit anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So she was sure that she's doing work for maybe some kind of very important other Changeling, and after she finished, it only fits me.
Awesome. I like that. So you owe her 2 debts.
Yeah.
Someone told you their secrets and you haven't told anyone about them yet. They owe you 2 debts.
Okay, so maybe I would go with either Zach or Thicket Flicker Jackets.
I can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
What kind of secrets do you two imagine that is?
We wait, maybe postpone it until
Sure.
yeah, so maybe that it will be easier then.
That sounds good to me. All right.
Okay.
And I think that's everything there.
Dangerous task.
A dangerous task. So I skipped that over that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about the dangerous task.
Okay, so maybe did they do that? Okay, so what it could be? So what Zach did fits, but we already have a depth from that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that is a good idea. So maybe that was. Maybe that was Songbird Rex, and
Okay.
the task was to retrieve something I needed. Things again, maybe beat some kind of hobgoblin that was wandering the city. Okay, I've got idea. If I could have like mansion where I live, it could be that it was a really nice place, and I got it really on really good price. Among my first to my personal charm, but also thanks to the fact that it was haunted and there were hobgoblins there. That's some kind of monsters that killed people around that area and destroyed things. And he got rid of them for me, or not.
And he so did he succeed or fail?
Okay, so I definitely think he failed. So
Okay.
I would say that at the point we start, we think that he succeeded.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. I think that's everything, right?
Yep.
Okay. Let's come to Thicket. So, Thicket, tell us a little bit about yourself in particular. Let's start with your background, how you were taken, and that kind of setup.
Yeah. So Thicket was kind of a mischievous, curious child, and came from a poor family, and got in an argument one night with his parents and his 2 or 3 siblings, and ran away from home. And this is the typical thing that kids do. They run away from home, they spend a night out in the cold, and they realize how awful that is, and they come back home. He spent a night out in the cold, like in a ditch or in a dark forest, and it got very cold, and he woke up in Arcadia.
And what was the place that you woke up in? Where'd you serve your durance?
Yeah, my durance was actually at a place called the Dancing Brook. This was almost a continuous, ostentatious, formal party that would go on. Lots of ballroom dancing. I was a serving boy. He came away around with a serving animal. Came around with a little tray, and would feed the guests, serve drinks and things like that. However, I was really there to pilfer items from the guests whenever they weren't looking.
All right. Do you think do you think that you kind of they made you into a raccoon, or did you more slowly become that?
I think they made me into one. I think that that's one of the parts of this durance, is that it has lots of fantastical beasts and things like that that are performing human tasks.
And how did you preserve your humanity through that?
I actually had a necklace from my mother that I kept and carried with me that I hid from my keeper that basically no one really knew about, and this was my connection back to the real world.
And how long has passed for you in the real world?
Decades.
Decades.
Yeah.
And that amount of time in endurance, or shorter, longer?
Oh, I'm sorry. In the Durance, probably about the same amount of time.
Okay.
I like the idea that Thicket appears to be a small boy, but is actually very mature and experienced.
And what's your chosen territory?
This would be urban, hidden urban areas. This would be things like attics or sewers or things that normally people wouldn't go.
Okay. So you've mapped out, you've got worked out all the ins and outs of a particular area that has a lot of attics and places to get into, and the sewers running through.
I love the idea of the abandoned houses. You know, it's like, oh, this is where I live. But of course, I don't live downstairs. I live up in the attic.
Right.
You know, and go from place to place.
Nice. And what won't you do to keep your motley mates safe?
I won't sell. I won't get rid of or sell or barter away my items, the stuff that I keep that's precious to me. This is kind of a especially like the locket I mentioned earlier. Knickknacks I've taken from some of the fae that I brought back through the hedge. Things like that.
Do you store those away somewhere, or do you keep them on you? Where are these items?
Yeah, I store them in my den.
Okay. Den. And that den, is that a particular attic, or is that something else?
Actually, I think it's like yes, it's an attic in a large abandoned house. It looks kind of like a mansion, but it's been abandoned by the previous owners. So
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. Let's talk about your rival. Who is your rival?
Songbird Rex, the long lost beast of summer. He stole into my den. He stole into my den and did something. I'm sure he did.
Okay. What do you think he did?
Oh, I don't know. Things are kind of out of place, and I keep going through all the items, but I can't find what's missing. But there's something missing. I can just feel it in my bones.
And what's the indicator for you that it was Rex?
He had been. He followed me one day back to where my house is. I saw him, furtively, and I thought I had, ducked into a different place. I ducked into a different gully, and he didn't know where I was going. But
Okay.
the next, very shortly after that, the next day or two, I come back home and everything's been messed with. And why did how could that happen? Oh, it must have been Songbird.
Perfect. Let's work out your debts. Someone lives in your territory benefiting from your protection. Who is that?
That's Semolina Pilchard.
Okay. She have like another one of these abandoned houses or buildings around in the area then?
I think actually she has she's got like a little shop. This is something that's gonna, she sells sodas and candy and that kind of stuff, but the neighborhood is kind of declining, so she doesn't have as many
Okay.
patrons as she used to. I almost want to say she's kind of like a bartender.
Okay.
Maybe an
Yeah,
old
that
timey
makes
soda
sense.
jerk or something like that.
Old soda fountain, old soda shop style thing.
Yeah.
Okay. You consider someone a friend, even though the friendship keeps bringing you trouble. They owe you a debt.
if you don't mind, I kind of like Gleaming Zack for this.
I do too. I was sort of
Yeah.
thinking about that.
Yeah, yeah,
Especially when you started talking about how much you love things.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And you're protecting someone from a bully or a stalker, and they owe you 2 debts.
So this is Spinning Jenny. She's
Okay.
been being picked on by Terrible Terrible Job.
Okay.
And I think this is Spinning Jenny has a house nearby, or a place where she stays nearby, and Terrible Job keeps messing with her, causing her to kind of move from site to site.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you are getting in the way of that.
Yeah.
And lastly, someone keeps pulling your ass out of the fire. You owe them 2 debts.
I kind of like, if it's okay, if that being Morosa.
I was thinking that we almost had to stick together.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when things get kind of rough, you're my kid. I mean, in the real world, she's like the one that'll cover for you because you still look like a kid. And yeah,
Perfect. All right. Let's take.
We could circle back to the to our
yeah.
debt. So I think
good.
that Flicker Jacket stole something from someone important, and I know about it.
What do you think was stolen?
Maybe it was a sword of. Do we have someone who could use swords here? No, we don't. So I was thinking something like a weapon, but maybe that was something from Hammering Beats.
Okay.
Maybe his belt,
Okay.
his special belt.
Is that cool with you,
Yeah,
Thicket? Okay.
That was a belt that he stole?
Yeah. All right. Lots of good stuff here. Lots. So let's take our bio break. Let's take about 7-8 minutes. That'll get us to the quarter hour. And then we'll come back. Still get to a few more questions. Maybe we can set some things up and rolling here. Okay?
Cool.
Cool. All right. So one of the things I do want to get a sense of, it's kind of a group choice here, is you are motley. The general, I'm going to go with kind of the default thing that you came out about the same time out of the hedge. Maybe you escaped together and then maybe got a little bit scattered when you came to the real world, but then we essentially got bound together. Fates conspired, and you would have done that contract of the motley, which builds that trust pool amongst you, and probably done by Spinning Ginny, since she's connected to all of you, and she is kind of the fate spider, so she's got all of that. So she's the one who did the contract, and this is something that Marosa suggested, that typically there's supposed to be 5 people in a motley, so she keeps getting drawn back into your stuff because there's only 4 of you. So that's part of why that happens. And I think we can establish other things kind of in play. Is there anything else we need to kind of get established on the table before I throw things to the winds?
What's like the general court structure of the city? Is there a dominant court, or is there a dominant court of the moment, or what's going on there?
Well, we know it's Summer has charge right now. So Summer, it's also Detroit. So I imagine if there's a court that has a lot of power, it's probably Autumn, just because that represents that kind of decline. So there's probably some tension between Summer and Autumn as Autumn keeps pushing forward, claiming climate change, and all of that sort of shift there. If we say those two, you are in the Winter Court. So how do you imagine they stand in relation to that?
I think they're probably sort of backing Autumn's play. I think there's, it's sorrow following on that fear sort of feeling. There's a lot of that in the city, and if it stays how it is, whatever. But if things continue to decline, if things continue to seem bleak, I think there's a lot of play there for Winter.
Okay. And I have going to throw a name here. So the Prince of the Winter Court's name is Carpenter Husk.
Ooh.
So that's him. He appears wooden, and almost looks like a mannequin, but kind of not. He's very carven. People call him Pinocchio behind his back. And he does not care for that, but he's the leader of the Winter Court. For the other 3 of you, so we've got Summer and Autumn kind of at odds, Winter backing that play. What do you 3 think about Spring? Where does Spring stand in relation to that?
I would say that Spring is like aiming for being the power behind the throne. So it never will be the most important court, but it aims to have people next to all the important people. So
they've spread out. They've got people in all kind of friends in all the courts, kind of thing.
Yeah, we don't rule, but we want to try to rule the ruling.
Okay. And the Prince of the Winter Court is a woman named Regardless.
Do you mean spring?
Spring Court. Sorry, Spring. Sorry. So there's that kind of manipulation going on. Anything else you want to establish about those courts?
I think that one of the big debates that's going on right now is that the hedge is encroaching, and it's essentially as more of the houses fall into decay, it is actually pushing into those residential areas.
Ooh.
And so that a lot of the debate that's going on is how they're going to push that back, or can it be pushed back?
I love every part of that.
Yeah. That's great. Makes sense given the locale, makes sense given the tension over whether people clear the hedge, clear the trodes, the bridge burners who want to destroy that. That's great.
I have a question. Do we have like one central location for all the courts, one freehold, or does each court have its own own place and freehold on top of that?
What do you think? What's more interesting? I mean, it's a single freehold, but in terms of that, is there a castle or a place of power for each one, or is there one central place that gets shifted? That's a great idea. What do you think?
I don't know. I like the idea of there being one central place that everybody has to sort of share power in, but I imagine there are also places that each of the court keeps private.
Like their own estates?
Mm-hmm.
Is that cool with you, Meichi?
What do you think about this as a freehold? I mean, this is like...
Open that in a new tab.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect. Centrally located, beautiful building. Nice.
And it definitely can be with some, can have some hedge encroaching on it.
Mm-hmm.
So there are droughts into the hedge from it.
Oh, that's really great.
Yeah. And then I imagine that each court has their own little private demesnes that they hold during the other times. And there's some great urban exploration things for those kinds of places in Detroit.
As far as the courts go, I think that, so I'd like to establish that maybe Spring used to be in charge and isn't anymore, and kind of ceded ownership or ceded over to Autumn, who's growing, and that's why we're trying to be the power behind the throne, is it's our grasp at trying to keep that power.
That something happened in the recent past?
Or things just waned. We can find that out during play, but...
Okay. So by the time you guys arrived, there was already some strangeness in terms of the relationship between Spring and Autumn.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I actually like the idea that back in our heyday that the central place was the Spring Court. And so one of the big things is when they made it central was part of the seating back in the day. But one of the things is that whereas every court, when they come into power, they have to put their glamours across the building so that it looks like their court, Spring still has all of their stuff built in. So they come in and it's easy to make it look fabulous again.
Nice.
Reminds them of their heyday. Awesome. Now, you four, as a motley, have a shared hollow, a hedge place of refuge. It's pretty small right now to start, and we'll figure out the details of that later. Where do you imagine that sort of the main entrance for that hollow is? What kind of place? The spot in the hedge you move into it where is that at?
How about an abandoned warehouse down by the docks?
Okay.
Because they're not seeing as much traffic as they used to, so they're not using all of the warehouses there.
Is that cool with everybody?
I'm thinking, I mean, docks are okay, but something just a little bit less industrial than warehouse. I think this is
Okay.
the warehouse would be a place that Camille will really have an issue with. I'm just wondering what it could it be.
That,
there could be
office.
or maybe like an old market that used to be down there, like essentially serving tourists and locals and things like that. Used to be a crossroads, and now it's emptied.
Maybe old empty hotel.
Okay.
That's good.
Would that work?
Mhm.
With
Yeah.
everyone?
Yeah, and I do sort of like that touristy aspect too. So I like the idea that like the lobby has a bunch of like souvenirs and postcards of like top heyday Detroit and everything's great and wonderful Motor City stuff.
Yeah. Lots of little tires on keychains, those things left behind.
So many
Awesome.
shot glasses.
Shot glasses.
Tiny spoons.
So you are at a party. It is, let's say it is in the central building. The summer court is putting on a patriotic sort of revel. They like all of the July 4th, the fireworks and the sort of the martial patriotism of that. They don't do it on July 4th, but they do it a little bit later so they don't match up. And this is their chance to kind of show off all their shinies. So any summer courtiers have, their what passes for uniforms, what passes for armor or weapons or things like that, and it is a grand ball, but certainly not as delicious food or as a wide variety of drinks as would be provided by the spring court or even the autumn. It's a little plain there. This is all overseen by their prince, which is Queen Falling, and she is overseeing that. And there's people there from all the different courts. It's not hugely attended, so not everybody is here, but anybody who can put up with the summer court and anybody who wants free food is probably here at the revel. So Marosa, when we look in on you at this party, what is Marosa doing?
She's got someone cornered and she's just having a chat at them. Essentially, she's she's everyone's friend, and whether they realize it or not. And so I assume she has cornered some unsuspecting darkling. That's usually what she goes after. She doesn't realize it, but she feels like they need a friend, so she's there to establish that she's that person.
All right, and you've got them in that corner, and they are a little nervous because they don't want to upset you, but they're kind of made of shadow, and they keep kind of pushing themselves back into the shadow. Like maybe they could push back far enough that they could vanish and slide away from you, and you will hear come up sort of behind you. You will see Terrible Job. And kind of wanders up to where you're at and says, "Oh, don't you think you ought to let the poor girl go?"
And I turn around to him and I'm like, you don't know anything.
Really? Okay.
Well,
And he'll
all right.
raise his hands and he'll step back and move away.
Damn, it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to.
And when you turn back, the Darkling's gone.
Oh!
Absolutely vanished there. But you see Job, and he is wandering about the scene. Zach, what would we see of you as we come in? You'll hear they've got like Aaron Copland music or John Philip Sousa marches. The summer court isn't particularly imaginative about these things, but that's their 4th of July stuff. So what do we see of you?
I think there's over near the sound system, there's sort of a library of old vinyl records there that they're using for some of this music. Imagine, is some of it live or is it all canned or what?
I imagine it's all canned.
Okay, so it's sort of their library of stuff that the summer court likes to play, and he's flipping through albums, and he'll pick up one every now and then, and as he's like studying it and sort of like reading through all the liner notes of stuff, the edges of the case will just start to singe a little bit and smoke, and little bits will flake off of them.
Whoa, dude. And you hear the whoa, 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 as hammering beats comes over to where you're at. Dude, no.
I was
hands off.
No, I was just admiring is there what?
No, dude, you can't touch the vinyl. That's my stuff. That's my stuff. That's for the mixing later.
Well, but it was out, and I was curious about it.
You're gonna melt it, man.
Melt?
It's gonna melt.
Of course, it's vinyl. It melts. It's what it's for.
It's my. And he like picks up the boxes and like lifts them and moves them over behind these turntables.
Oh,
I got to do my show later. I gotta and
fine.
melt my vinyl.
I'll just keep this one. You can have those, I guess.
Oh man, what album did you grab?
It's something from the 70s. It's a group called 2 Tons of Fun, and it's 2 very large women just happy and in like the LeMay-iest, glitteriest muumuus you've ever seen. They look like they're having a great time.
And he, okay, you take that one.
Thanks.
Goes up, gets his big headphones on, starts looking at his stuff. What about you, Camilla? What do we see of you when we come in and look at this party?
I think I will be near the. So who is the summer king or queen? It's queen.
The summer prince is Queen Falling.
Queen Falling. So I think I will be talking with her on whatever subject it's available. So I tend to gravitate toward the people of power and interest.
And what do you imagine would be the topic that you could breach at summer court? Very strong passion, anger. What topic would you be speaking on?
Well, I think I will. Of course, I will start with complimenting the party. So it's distinctive summer style, which very nicely puts through their character. And then I will go towards the encroaching hedge in the city. So I will say that it's something that needs to be taken care of. Someone strong needs to do something about it. So I'm not 100% convinced that this is what I think, but I will be steering conversation in a way that makes my conversation partner feel good.
Okay. And certainly you know that Queen Falling is one of the people who has said that we have to do something both in the real world. She always does this with her hands when she talks, I have to do something with the real world. I have to do something in the hedge. We have to take action. Have to take action. And she'll say that. And right now, my lieutenant is looking into the matter, and she'll gesture to Gloriana Twofold, who is approaching. She's dressed in a very nice looking uniform for spring. Got those bright, yellows and oranges on it, decorations on and about it. And she will approach, and she's like, Camilla.
Oh, Gloriana, how nice to see you.
So nice to see you. I understand you were.
I'm kissing the air next to her cheek. So
yes. I understand that you're offering some unsolicited advice. I mean advice.
No, not at all. I'm just we were just talking about how something needs to be done, and how this party is wonderful, and Summer Court is best suited to do something about the state of the city.
Well, certainly we'll be putting together some people to go and do some exploration to see and determine the bounds of this encroachment. Can I put your name down as one of those to assist?
I'm not really well suited for actions like that. I mean, I will be glad to support you in any way I can, but I'm not a warrior, Gloriana. You know
yes,
that
much is obvious.
I'm smiling at her.
So is she. The daggers are going back and forth between you two. You can almost see them in the air there, and someone will pull Queen Falling off to speak with someone else there.
Okay.
Let me cut to Thicket. Thicket. Oh my gosh, it's a gathering of people. They all have stuff. There's music going on. What do we see you doing?
So I think old habits die hard. So what we see Thicket doing is basically, you see all of a sudden Thicket, the music, a new song will start, and it's a big rousing Sousa kind of song. And he'll go over and he'll pick up some drinks, and he'll start, walking out among the people who are dancing, and kind of pass the drinks out, and then stop for a second and shake his head, and then kind of come back into a corner, and he kind of does circles going, no, that's the old way, not now, and he kind of gets control of himself, and then whenever he kind of doesn't think about it, the music will kind of rise and level, and he'll go back and grab some hors d'oeuvres and start passing those out, and no, not that, and then start spinning in circles again. Yeah.
And it's on one of those spins when you'll realize that you're kind of in the shadow of this figure, and you see Songbird Rex is there, big arms crossed. He's watching you, just watching you.
And I think this is kind of a, shocking, development. Oh, and he kind of, ducks under the table and peeks back out, and Songbird's still kind of there, and he's like, oh.
Yeah, he kind of paces you for a while, like he maybe thinks he's done something. He's Summer Court too, so he's kind of keeping an eye on things, and he will pace you for quite a while there. There's various dances and food goes on and so on. And the four of you, one of the things about being in a motley is when you're in a social occasion, there's a weird gravity of fate that kind of pulls you to be in the same part of the room from time to time. It's almost like there's a sheepdog that circles around and keeps pushing you in closer, like you're weirdly hurt, and you have to fight against that. And you can see in one of the adjoining rooms that's open. It's sort of the entryway. That there are a couple of the Summer Court people out there, and you're pretty sure you saw Spinning Ginny out there. And now there's just this. There seems to be very loud conversation, like definitely raised voices out there in that place. So what do you want to do?
I hold up the record to Marosa and say, look what I found. Isn't it great?
And she's very much like, that was my favorite when I was a kid.
It sounds amazing. And he'll sort of pull out the disc, and they're like fingerprints burned into the various tracks.
Oh no.
That smell of burnt vinyl a little bit too, hanging in the air.
And I go, we'll hang it up on the wall when we get back, okay?
Nice.
So I think that what I have to do, because there's voices, she goes, Zach, what's going on out there? Did you see who went out there? Because it was Spinning Jenny that we know was in that room. So she points out the room where everyone's shouting.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'd been listening to the music.
And you see her kind of look at you like she can't even comprehend how you could be like not noticing who's walked right past you to get into the room. I'll go and look in the room.
Okay.
I'll kind of give Camilla the eye, because, she'll want to know what's going on. So I'll be the one to walk over there and take a look in case, weapons are flying or guns are, that sort of thing.
I'm going to follow.
Okay. So you two will come over to that spot, and you'll see that this is the entryway. There are a couple of the summer court members, the real junior ones, who are essentially acting as door persons in kind of ceremonial things that are awkward and not really armor, but they have to wear them. It's part of their hazing of some kind. And you can see that Questions So Loud, who's an elemental from the summer court, she continually kind of switches between sort of fire and water. There's sort of a wave that goes across her when you see her. She's there, and she's clearly confused. Ginny is there, and there is a changeling that you've never seen before. He is about 7 feet tall. He's got this suit jacket on, got this almost cowboy hat with horns. Hair comes down. You're not sure if he's a beast or not, but he's got a cigar, and it's very clear that he is having some kind of argument with Ginny. Question So Loud doesn't know what to do. The two door persons are confused, like they don't know who this person is. And the one thing you'll hear is that this guy says to Ginny, "You're coming with me. That is how it is. That's the contract." Thicket, what about you? What are you doing?
So I think Thicket's easily distracted. So he's, listening to these people talking. He looks around a little bit, and as soon as Marosa points, he kind of, that draws his attention. He kind of scurries over to the doorway, and he's kind of peeking in from the side. And then Marosa and Camilla kind of walk up to the room itself and kind of look inside. And I think he's kind of hanging out there right by the edge. And, as soon as he says, I think as soon as the stranger says something about, that's the way it is, you have to come with me, I think he might, this is Spinning Jenny. Is that right?
Spinning Jenny, who's clearly being hassled. Yes.
Yeah, I think, he kind of walks into the room and kind of grabs a hold of Spinning Jenny's hand, and kind of stands there next to her. Okay.
And this guy, you're kind of small, so he kind of looks down at you. You can smell the kind of roiling of old cigars off this guy, and he clearly doesn't recognize you. And he will kind of look and then not acknowledge you, and he will turn to Ginny again, and he will say, "It's your choice. I can make a scene right now, or you can come with me. And she's kind of speechless right now.
Okay. And I think that's the thing is I'm never speechless. So I roll up and I go, I kind of come up looming right behind her and I'm going, excuse me, sir, what's going on? This is my friend Spinning Jenny. And she says like very much a sort of ownership sort of thing. You know, this is my friend Spinning Jenny.
And I think as she goes in and sort of makes a scene, I've followed everyone else went up to the doorway. Why not? And as I'm looking in, I actually back up a little from the doorway and touch a dead electrical socket in the wall there. And I want to travel through the wires to a socket on the other side of the room they're in, basically behind them, behind a desk.
There's that crackle. I imagine that there's a smell of ozone when that happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so you pop there. Camilla, where are you positioning yourself when this sort of charged situation begins?
I think that I'm going to approach this man straight on and ask him, hello, can you introduce yourself? Can you tell us what your business is here? And I smile very nicely.
And he looks at the two of you, Morosa and Camilla, and he goes, good cop, bad cop. I know this one. Oh, yeah. And
no, you are mistaken. We are not representatives of the police force, sir.
Oh, a literalist. But you're not an elemental. Elementals are your literalists. My name is 3 Iron Sour.
Do I know him?
No, you've never heard this name. No one's ever spoken it around you, anything. And he says, I've been gone, as was required by the writ, 7 years, 7 weeks, and 7 days. And I am back. And Ginny, my wife, and she goes, fiance is now bound to marry me. I have served my sentence. And what was cut off from me will now be redeemed. Got a problem with that, either of you two?
And
3, 4?
And I sort of go, well, you said contract, so I think you're going to have to, she goes, if you called that up, you're going to have to, exactly state the terms.
So you want to kind of get him to stand down?
Yeah, essentially, or essentially say what his claim is so that we can find the loophole, because that's our job.
He will say, Ginny knows the terms of the contract. She understands what is due here. He clearly doesn't want to go into it here in front of you guys.
Is Ginny wearing a ring or anything?
No.
You have some physical form of this contract, some proof beyond what you're saying to a group of strangers?
And he will reach in and pull out this necklace. And it's just a nice silver chain. And you will see that there are 2 rings on it. And he will say, this is the marker for that contract.
I have rings. I reach into a pocket and I pull out like 3 random rings. It's not so special.
Okay, so I would like to try to pierce his mask. I mean, figure him out. I was serving as he talks, and I try to see what kind of person he is and what drives him.
Sure. You've been quiet. You're able to kind of look at this. Let's see, and go ahead and have you roll pierce the mask.
Okay. How do I roll here?
So what you will do is go ahead and put your cursor in one of the blank boxes.
Okay.
And just hit backspace.
Okay, it's 1. Ah, okay, it's 5. Okay. So that gives me 6. I failed.
You had 7 actually is what you rolled,
Uh,
right? Or am I
no,
saying
no.
the wrong thing?
I rolled 5 plus 1 mind. I have 4 and 1. So.
That's a 1d6 on below. If you roll up the 2d6 above.
Okay, so 2d6. That's total, right?
Plus whatever your bonus is. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so it's 5. So it's even. So it's a fail. Do we have advance or on fail, XP on fail, or how that moves?
Yes, there is XP on fail. He is kind of impenetrable. And as you are kind of watching him, a couple of other changelings come in. They look like they're dusty from the road. They've got kind of jackets on, and they look rough. And they come up and they start to flank this guy like they're with him. One of them will look at you, Zach, because you're kind of behind him, and the other one kind of comes up beside. What do you want to do? Didn't get all names. It's going to take me a bit to get them all down. What about you, Thicket? What do you want to do?
Yeah, so I think Thicket is kind of, whenever this new person kind of started staring him down, he kind of ducked behind Jenny. And I think that, as he's gotten a little distracted, I think that Thicket says, Jenny, come on, come on. And he's trying to encourage her to leave this room and maybe diffuse the situation a little bit.
Okay. Let's see here. You're trying to escape the situation, trying to get somebody else out with you, I think. Does that seem like a good way to read that?
Yeah, that sounds right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So why don't you go ahead and roll with Wild?
So I'm going to help, I think.
Oh, sure.
Despite not being able to read that guy, I'm going to take him by the arm and say, okay, maybe we could approach this in a more civilized way. There is a party going on. You could come in. We can discuss this. So I'm getting attention of Thicket.
Okay.
Do you mind if I roll real dice?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. That is a 7 plus Wild makes it an 8.
Okay. And
you want to... 9. So...
Okay. So what you can do is here's the choices on support is you can add a trust to the pool. You can clear a condition, take a hit. None of those really apply. You can give him advantage, which means he would roll another die and pick the 2 highest from what he rolled.
Okay. So how a trust works in the Motley pool?
So trust is everybody in the group has, the pool has the trust pool. You can always spend trust from the group pool to give somebody advantage on a move after a roll. Essentially, you build trust as like a future support move.
Okay. So I think that... Okay, I will go with trust.
Okay.
So where do we mark that?
I'll just keep track of that right now in the chat, and I'll mark it down before we're done. So you've got a choice, I think, there, Thicket. You can get her out, or you can get yourself out.
I think I start to usher her towards one of the exits, and I think she gets out.
Okay.
But I get stuck behind.
All right. And Zach, Marosa, you and Camilla sort of helping him. He's a little distracted, and then he realizes that Ginny's gone, and he looks you squarely in the eye, Morosa, and it looks like he's contemplating whether he's going to get physical here.
Right. And she sort of stops and says, now, I know that if you're returned, you've got some friends in here. So who do you want me to go get to speak your part of this? She goes, I mean, we're reasonable people. And this was clearly previously your freehold. Am I understanding this correctly, sir?
Yeah, it is the case.
All right, then. Then who could you name as your friend? Of course you have friends, don't you?
Oh, I'm going to have you roll heart here.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Backspace, right?
So I'm going
Yep.
to help again, I think, if I can.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Okay, so that's 10 from me, so I will give advantage.
All right.
Okay, so you can roll 3 dice, Sherry.
All right.
I think I just keep doing the same thing.
Okay.
Okay, so you're moving around.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. So I rolled 10. I have a heart of 1. So 11 plus the 1 from him is 12. So I
No,
look
it's,
him in the eye.
I think you're rolling 3 dice instead of 2 and picking the...
I'm rolling.
That's advantage, or is it +1?
It's
Yeah, so you with advantage, you
Oh.
roll 3 dice.
Oh, so I had 12. Okay,
Okay.
sorry. So I had 12, 13, 14.
So you're fine. He will pause there. You see him sees the social butterfly moving around back and forth. Now, Question So Loud has kind of fallen back. The 2 guards have come up. He's kind of edging the situation, and he will say, kind of looks at you, and he's clearly going to back down, but he does this thing where he pokes your chest because he's about your height,
Right?
and he goes, I'm going now, but you tell regardless. I'm assuming that she's still around, that 3 Iron Sour has come for his wife.
I sort of stop and say, I will, because I am the very kindest, take that message to her. And if she has an answer, maybe I'll bring it back to you.
He turns to go. Zach, it looks like these 3 are getting ready to leave.
I want to see as he keeps being distracted between the 2 women there. I want to see if I can sneak something out of his pocket before he leaves.
Okay. So what are you looking for?
Really anything. I mean, ideally, I'd like to steal those rings off that necklace, but that seems very unlikely.
That seems incredibly unlikely. If you just want something from his pocket to mark him, I'd say that'd be pretty easy for you to do. I think that's be a manipulate. Does that seem right?
It's gonna go so bad. Yeah. And yeah, if trying to find not like just a coin or a scrap of paper or something, but something that seems a little more personal long term. But we'll see how badly this goes.
I'd like to help with that.
Oh, good.
Yes, actually, you're the perfect person to do that.
And I think the way that this help comes in is that I kind of pull out an hors d'oeuvre or something from my hand, from my pocket or something. I kind of hand it up to him on the other side from Zach, saying, don't leave without something to eat.
Yep. Hey. Oh, anchovies, no.
Okay. Oh, I rolled a 6, plus I add in the season.
Yeah. And he's winter.
And he's winter? Oh, that makes it a 5.
Okay. So he will actually push you back when you do that. Kind of gets a little physical there. So you kind of actually pushes you back, and the other 2 kind of come up. But let's have your roll then. Roll 2d6 with your heart. Zach?
Yes, and I, in solidarity, also got a 5.
Okay.
Well,
Real bad
So-
at heart.
Yeah. So both of you get to, here's the good news. Both of you each get to mark an XP. Okay. So that's great. And you reach your hand in and something kind of snaps on and you kind of pull it back and there is on your 2 fingers like this little miniature bear trap that has snapped onto your fingers and is stuck there. And you kind of pull back and it's on there and it doesn't hurt, but your fingers aren't moving, like you can't move them.
It freaks him out enough that he like melts into the floor and back out through the wires away from this shit.
Okay. When you go to do that, you start to go into the wires, but you can't because this thing is stuck on your fingers.
Oh crap! He comes back
He
up out of the
says-
floor. Zach looks really freaked out.
I've been pickpocketed by better things than you, mister.
And I think Thicket kind of starts hooting and hollering and pointing. Oh, look!
He will look back at you,
He'll-
Morosa, and Camilla.
Yeah, and I'll kind of go, kids, settle down. And he's taking his exit now. We'll speak with you later, Mr. 3 Iron Sour. She says his name very formally.
And what was your name, your handle, Ladykins?
And she'll assume that he's talking to Camilla.
So, I think I'm going to frown at him and say, "You're very unwell behaved." If you decide that you are ready to talk with us in a civilized way, you can find us at the court. I smile at him, and I'm handing him my card.
He has one of his guys take it. He's a little suspicious now. Okay. And he will say, all right then, I'm going to leave, but I will be back. You tell regardless, she has 3 days.
3 days, 3 Iron Sour. That works.
That's how it works. And he will back off. He'll go, turn to you, Zach, and he'll go, you need to soak that in water to get that thing off of there.
Oh, appreciated?
It'll sting like the dickens when you do it, though. Bye.
And I think all this time, Thicket's been kind of worrying at it, like, you know.
It's clearly some little token trap thing. And it won't give to physical means.
I think before I do try and get it off, since it doesn't hurt right now, and I can concentrate on it, I'm going to try and use my psychometry on it, as the lightning that's zipping all over him sort of comes down his hand and plays over that little bear trap.
That's very clever.
And it's a token, or it's a little magical trap, so I imagine it stands up. But like most things that I do this reading on, it starts to sizzle and burn at the edges and deteriorate a little bit.
Okay, go ahead and roll with weird.
Oh, come on, be better than last time. That's a 2 plus 2 would be 4, and I think, not really understanding sharing very well, I want to use that trust selfishly.
Okay.
That bumps it up a category, doesn't it?
Yes, I believe it does. So essentially, how do you want to describe it as you using that trust selfishly?
Lowell, I want to stop for a second.
Sure,
If
absolutely.
you look at the roller on his sheet, it's broken. I think the one cell has gotten deleted out, and so he's only rolling 1d4.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's your problem. It is not that.
Let me copy that and put that in that cell. Let's have you redo that here.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying you won't roll that badly again. Just saying.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So
a
go ahead.
7.
Okay.
So that's at least technically a success.
Okay. So you get to pick from that list one of those questions.
What secrets or mysteries has this object been privy to?
He has been out on the road in the hedge, and he came in to the freehold through a hedge door that he clearly knows and is hidden away. So he has a very accessible secret hedge door into the
Nice.
freehold close by here. Does that seem good?
Yeah, that seems awesome. Sorry, I was just making a note.
Okay. Sure. Camilla, Morosa, and God, Thicket. It's going to kill me. Let's get a last little bit from you before we wrap here for today. So Thicket, you've kind of worried at that, and then you'll see him start to do that electrical thing. What do you want to do then, Thicket? What's the last we see of you in this scene?
I think that, Thicket sees the electrical stuff and he backs off, and that's whenever he gets distracted and he goes back looking through the door where Jenny left, like looking around for her.
And you don't see her.
Yeah.
She's clearly like fled. Surprisingly, she usually is pretty solid, so her running away is pretty unusual. What about you, Camilla?
I think I will go to someone from Summer Court, and I will tell that this strange man who arrived assaulted one of our motley members.
Okay. Who do you think you grab from Summer?
So I will either try to go straight to the queen, or I will use my debt with Gloriana.
Okay.
For that.
I don't think you need to use up your debt. But clearly there's been this noise, and something is going on, and Queen Falling is talking to some people and kind of moving over this way as you approach, and she will say, "What's going on?"
Well, there was this man who claimed that his husband or fiancé or someone like that of Ginny, and he was very aggressive. He attacked Thicket, and he tried to. He was like, I don't know who it is, but he was surely some kind of criminal. This is how he looked.
And she will stop and she'll go, "Oh my God, has it been 7 years?" And she looks around, and like a couple of people clearly know what she's talking about, but others don't. And she's like, "Oh, this is not good." And that's the thing. We're going to hold that. Morosa, I'm going to give you a last word here.
All right. And essentially what I'm going to do is, you'll see Morosa, she'll go in. The first thing she does is she stops and she gives Questions So Loud a hug, because she knows that Questions got all confused up, and she goes, "Now you just go back to the door. You're supposed to watch, okay? But I don't think anything that exciting is going to happen." And she'll sort of lead her out there to stand there and do what she was sworn to do. And I'm going to go see if I can find Regardless, who almost certainly would have made a show here, since she's the Queen of Spring.
Regardless is there. She's got some of the courtiers around. She's doing that quiet thing at the edges when you approach, and she will look and she will say, Rosa?
Queen, regardless. And I sort of get all awkward because this is the important stuff. And I stop and I say, there was a visitor at the door, dropped your name, and said, 3 Iron Sour is back in town. And applying his claim upon Spinning Jenny.
Well, he is my predecessor.
So what do I got to do so I can beat him up?
And that's a good time to stop. Okay. Yeah, Mishi, if you want to change that, you're more than welcome to. Okay. So we're gonna stop here. People got XP for misses. You interacted with several people from the different courts, so you want to make sure that you've marked on the sheet all those courts you've interacted with, because when you've interacted with people from all 4 of them, you clear that out in a session and you get an XP. So we've definitely interacted with people from spring and summer there.
And Spinning Jenny's in autumn.
Yes, that's true.
And that guy was also autumn, right?
Spring.
The guy that you dealt with used to be the Prince of Spring.
Oh,
Does that count, or is he outside of our court structure at the moment?
He's outside your court structure, so don't worry about him.
Okay.
I don't think nobody cleared conditions, nobody conceded conflicts, and I don't think anybody did anything serious to sacrifice or risk to mess with your rival, which is another way that you can get XP. So I think
that.
Yeah.
yes. So we'll start again in a week. We'll start from that point. You guys have 1 trust in your pool. At the beginning of next session, I'll talk a little bit about the motley, the trust pool, and the stuff with the hollow, and we'll get that on the table. Is that cool with everybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm super excited. So I'm looking forward to this. Great characters. So this is gonna be, yeah. Okay. So everybody have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see everybody next week.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Well,
Thank you.
I have one thing. I'm not going to make it on the 23rd, so 3rd session, I think. I
It's a 3rd
canceled. Yeah.
Okay.
I canceled, but I'm just telling you so you know.
That's
Sorry
perfect.
about
Thank you. I appreciate you telling me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you next week.